Hello, I'm Kamyar Rezaie, and this is Minds of Commercial Real Estate, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the dynamic world of commercial real estate. As a commercial broker to high-profile clientele in Southern California, I've grown a deep passion for the real estate industry. And in this show, we'll be exploring all things commercial real estate through conversations with some of my close friends, colleagues, clients, and partners who share my passion for the business. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please remember to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and of course leave comments with any questions or thoughts you may have about the show. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys for joining me on Minds of Commercial Real Estate. Today we have a special guest, Edward Baida from Baida Jewelry. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
All right, good to see you again.
Yeah.
So Eddie is a dear friend, dear client. Not only him, his brother, his fiance, his father, and he's introduced me to a lot of people, which I've been able to help and accommodate for either real estate or loan purposes. So yeah, Eddie, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Yeah, no, everything's great. It's good to be here. Good to be with you guys. I definitely, man, I remember that specifically. You were coming in, you were buying jewelry, and you were doing, your commercial loan business. And I just remember looking at you one day, and I'm like, hey, why don't you deal with a lot of my customer base? You took care of me, took care of my family, and I said, why don't we, expand that a little bit and elaborate into a different field? And I think you were mostly doing commercial at that time.
Correct.
You were mostly just doing commercial. And I said, well, it started with my brother. When my brother was buying a house, and it was his first home. And I remember that the loan officer dropped the ball on that. And within 24 hours left to close escrow, they found out that the employee just wasn't showing up. It wasn't even working file. Right. My brother was calling, and nobody answered. And then I remember, I called you, Dad called you and said, hey, can you help out Mike? And within 8 hours, I think you got everything rebundled, repackaged up, sent it out, got the loan approved, and Mike was able to close escrow and get the house of their dreams, which their family lives in now. And then I looked at you and I'm like, dude, you're really good at this. Like, why don't you do residential? You're like, oh, commercial's my thing. And then I think you kind of elaborated and started working with, you elaborated further into it. You grew and got into doing with a lot of LAPD, LA Sheriff, LA City Fire, County Fire, which is a huge part of our customer base, and taking care of first responders. And I think you kind of continued what that idea that we have is like give back to the people that,
right,
give to us all the time. So, yeah, I remember when you started doing that. And I think that's great. I think it's good that you bring that to the average person like myself. I mean, I don't think I would know where to begin with doing something as well. First time home buyer, it's a very special time, but it's also a very confusing time.
Right.
So I think that's where your expertise definitely comes in and helps a lot.
Right. One of the moments I remember when we were going through COVID, and there's a lot of hiccups and a lot of things going on, and then we sat down, and people were getting the PPP loans, and then we were able to. Helped you with that one particular bank that was able to accommodate, because a lot of the major banks, even though you guys are big and your dad's been banking with them for over 43 years, really didn't help out much.
Yeah. So I remember that really well. We were working from home. Office was shut down. We were working from home and doing our best and balancing our, general health, being safe, precautionary, what was unknown and uncharted territory. But at the same time, we were like, hey, we have a business. We're paying our rent through COVID. We have employees that we had to pay through COVID. And that struggle, that challenge was realizing that as much as we want to be home, we have a duty to be able to still fund this business and keep this business going after 43 years of, at that time it was 43 years of business. Yeah. And I remember you called me and said, hey, what are you doing with some of the programs? And I said, well, what programs, And coming from, first generation American immigrant family, my father came here and he never really looked for, not to say handout, but never really looked for resources. He just did whatever he could and what he knew in the old world way. And I remember having that conversation with you, and you're like, hey, you need help. Like, you're going to need the PPP, you need the SBN. I go, well, how do I do that? And people would say it, and it was very easy for people to say, but it was like, oh, you do it, just go on the website. But you go there and you just start looking. And again, I mean, to the average person, I mean, you show me a diamond, I could tell you every single thing about a diamond. I could tell you everything. I could probably tell you where the rough is from just by looking at its material, which most people can never do in their lifetime, you know? But you show me all these documents and I'm just start looking, I'm like, oh, wow, this needs a lot. This needs an accountant. This needs an attorney to read. It needs a lot. And I think you really helped me through that course and guiding me through that and, you know, taking advantage, obviously, of what the government was willing to help out and help out small businesses. I think that was super crucial. And I think that was a huge part in, I think, our overall sustainability, but also our growth and future growth was huge in that. I think that being able to work with the capital the government provided to us, one that had to be paid back, and obviously one that also was helping out with our employee base. And, you know, we retained all of our employees throughout COVID. We kept every single employee, and a lot of that was possible, obviously, because of the government, but also because of someone like you. I mean, had you never had that conversation with me, I probably wouldn't have known how to go about that and so forth. So I think those government programs mixed with somebody who knows what they're doing, I mean, I think that's super crucial. I don't think enough people probably know how important that is, or really how much they might need that, or would have needed that. I mean, at that time, I mean, I think looking back, I remember calling the landlord and we were like, hey, you know, I know a lot of people are defaulting on rent, but that's not who we are. We're 43 years in business. We've been on time every single day, and we will continue to do that. But I mean, obviously, where's that funds coming from? That's coming out of personal savings and so forth. So integrity is a huge part of that.
Right. The particular loan that he was speaking was the PPP loan, which were forgiven. There was a round one and a round two.
Correct. Which you helped me on the round two. I think you let me know literally the day of. You're like, hey, there's a round two of PPP, you know, and you helped me out with that and connected me actually with a very nice banker who, I mean, not only to help on that, but helped, you know, through the long term. I was banking with probably, you know, there's a big three in finance and accounting, and I'm sure this is similar. You got, you know, JP Morgan, you got Bank of America, you have Wells and the large banks. I was banking with one of those large banks that when we told them, hey, you know, we need to do this PPP and SBA, they were like, go on the website and fill it out. And I'm like, no, like, you guys are a banker, so that's why we keep large amounts of sums of money with you, and we have small business bankers and so forth. And it was very difficult to get anybody to assist with.
Right.
So,
and then another particular loan during the COVID days was the EIDL loan, which I know you guys were obviously approved for it, but due to your father's mentality and never liking to take loans, and just, you know, just his belief was doing everything cash, just sleeping at night without having to owe anybody.
Yeah. Use what's in your checking.
Use what's in your checking, you know. But, you know, with the way you and I were able to speak to him, convince him.
Correct.
And I think it really worked out for you guys in a beneficial way. And number one, the rate that was given to anybody who has a EIDL loan is at 3.75 fixed for 30 years.
Yeah.
Versus what the rates were. If you were to get it today, it'd be 9, 10, 11%, which doesn't really pencil.
No. I mean, you're never going to come out. I mean, in my business, I mean, we work on really, really, you know, small, short profit. We buy, we flip, we take care of the customer. We work on a couple percent, we move on. At those rates, we would never be able to not just survive, but I wouldn't be able to give the guarantees that I do to my customers. The guarantees I give is because I know I'm buying well and I'm selling well, you know. And going back to what you said and convincing, you know, it's always tough being, you know, first generation and trying to take over your family's business and legacy, because you deal with new generation, new ways of business, and deal with old ways. And my father's old way was never spend what you don't have. And I firmly believed in that. And I think that it took one day just sitting down with Cam, and he was just looking and it was just like, hey, like, dude, you're a beast at buying. You have great buying power, but like sometimes you limit yourself because you just, you know, you're being conscientious of your capital. And that's very well true. And that's what I was doing. But, you know, the COVID time was a very interesting time. It was a really big time of uncertainty. You had people who made big power moves during COVID, and you had people that essentially were precautious. And the people that did it right and made those moves during such a volatile time, I mean, they scaled, they grew. And I think that when you helped us out with that EIDL loan, I mean, my dad, of course, looked and was like, I don't need the money. You know, it helps obviously during this difficult time, but at the end of the day, we don't really have to fully need it if we could sustain it. But that loan did help us. And when we took that loan, we were able to buy inventory at that time, which was great pricing. I mean, people were trying to turn over product and sell because COVID was, a very difficult situation in the jewelry and diamond business. People weren't traveling anymore. I'm used to people traveling every couple of weeks and bringing new merchandise. They weren't traveling. They were trying to do business over the phone and through online and through videos and WhatsApp and with attractive pricing. And with that capital, I was able to have a stronger buying power, buy inventory better, turn over inventory faster, and have that flexibility. And I think that definitely helped scale the business to what it is today. I don't think that things would definitely be the same without that assistance.
Right. In your business, your profit is based on the purchase price of the product.
Yes.
So that's a very key factor for you. Comparing those rates of when the idle rates being the 3.75 versus today, if you were to say you need some capital and going out there in the market, either getting a typical SBA loan today or something, how would that affect your business?
Oh, I mean, it would affect it big time. I'd have to charge customers a lot more. I mean, it would change, I think, on a huge magnitude. I mean, the whole beauty of our business is, like I said, we'll buy well, we'll sell well. And we usually, obviously, and our thing in our business is to take care of the client. If I buy well, that's going to go to the customer's benefit. That's not going to go to my pocket. That's not going to be extra money that goes there. But if I'm buying and I'm having to be mindful of larger interest rates that I'm paying, and that money's going to the bank, that money's not going to me, and now it's going to the customer. And I'll use it as a very similar example to, gold going up. A lot of people always think, because we're in the gold and diamond and jewelry business for a long time, that people think that when gold goes up, it's a good thing. People always tell you, oh, your inventory's up, but I got to sell that inventory. And most people are happy because they can charge more for that. We're not. The way we've done our business, and how I think firsthand as a client, but not only just about, you were referred by multiple people, you referred multiple people, and how many thousands of clients we have. We basically built our business off of taking care of our customers. And when we buy well, we sell well. And when we have to get charged by the bank, we have to pass that on to the customer. But the customer is not necessarily going to look at it like you're getting taken care of. They don't, sometimes they don't think of those things. So for example, when gold goes up and we have to sell that more, it's actually less attractive to us because our customer thinks they're not getting as good of a deal. They also have, with a set amount of money, if they have $10,000 net to spend, they're essentially going to get a more inferior product or lesser amount of that product for that capital. Whereas when the gold is lower, the interest rate is lower, my customer can buy more things. Like, a huge thing about the market right now, and, there's obviously a little bit of adjustments going on in the world. Some people ask me, they're like, hey, so what about, the price of things? I don't look at anything as a negative way. I look at it as a positive. I go, people were rushing to buy a Rolex Daytona when they were $55,000, and right now you can buy one for $29,000. It's a bargain. Like, right. You couldn't afford to buy it before, and now you can. So with markets adjusting a little bit, I tell people all the time, I go, look at the benefit of this. Before, if you had $20,000 allotted to, let's say, a 2-carat diamond, you couldn't go that high up on the scale. Right now, with a little bit of adjustment and things, you can buy and get a lot more value out of that. But with the difficulty of banks, and like you said, and taking different rates, if you don't get the right funding, that extra cost is cost. Right. It's A plus B equals. So, you have to add your cost of product now plus interest, and that has to go to the customer. And unfortunately, that's just simple math, and we don't want that.
Right. It is, like you said, it is probably you can get better pricing in items, but the cost of capital is high.
Correct.
That's the issue.
Yes.
That people are facing.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, any business, what I've learned, I'm 32 years old, and I'm very grateful for my knowledge and so forth. But what I've learned is every business is essentially banking. Right. Every business is just what you get a cost for, what's your overhead, what's your expense, few profit, percent, and you turn over the product. But it always has to make sense. Right. So like you said, if the cost of capital, if something's aging in your inventory and it's sitting there and you're paying interest on it and you sell it at only 10% profit because that's what you're used to, but now you're paying a crazy amount of interest on that product, you're losing.
You're losing, Mike.
And that's a losing formula. And that's what's going to happen to your company. You're going to go under.
Right.
So exactly what you said is the cost of capital is very important. And I think the most important thing is knowing knowing enough, which you're never going to know enough unless that's your industry and that's your forte, but trusting someone that knows enough. And I think, I think that was a huge thing when we were going through our expansion, right? And we were going through building out our office and doing a build out and a remodel. And my large bank that I worked with wanted to offer us a construction loan, right?
TI loan.
Yeah, a TI loan. And, you know, they know how to package things well. It's like, they're like the Chanel of packaging or Hermes, you know, they bundle it up and give it to you and say, hey, you know, 6 months, you have to draw on 6 months and don't worry, it's this. And then I asked Cam and I'm just like, hey, you know, what's your opinion? And you just start seeing the loan officer look kind of worried and you're like, well, who's he? And I go, he's my finance guy. What do you mean? He works here? I go, don't worry, that's my finance guy. Nothing's going to get approved unless he goes through it. Cam looks and goes, no, that's what you're charging? After all the beautiful packaging and bundling and strings, this is what you're charging? He's like, no, my client's not going to go that. Well, no, we'll present it to him. And Kim's like, no, I'm not presenting that to his father because he's going to say no. We'll just offer it. He's like, no, I'm not going to give you a losing formula. That's not going to work for him. Right. Either you go back to your bank and you know, figure out something better that works, right?
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Or you're setting up my client for failure, which is your client, unfortunately.
43 years.
Yeah. But that's capitalism sometimes and the way that the big companies will eat the small companies.
Right.
That was super helpful. And I was really appreciative by you because, you know, you definitely saw that out and just said right away, no, I won't let them get that. And it was interesting to see how a big finance company and a representative can get very flustered right away and see like, we'll just present it and just try to sneak that right by. But thankfully you're obviously able to help
at the time, at the right time. I was in.
Yeah, you were in the office, literally coming for personal. And I was like, Cam, look at this. So,
well, and by the way, a TI loan is a tenant improvement loan, meaning you're going to get financing to improve your space or move into larger space or grow your space out.
Yeah, which can be definitely beneficial. I mean, given the right circumstances, what we learned, you know, it could definitely be beneficial if you know, need to keep your capital, right? And do your remodel and expenses. Right. You have to basically front these contractors, essentially. You know what I mean? You're basically putting money in before you're actually even getting anything out. Yeah. So,
right. Well, hopefully that the expansion should be going through smoothly. We're looking forward to the bigger space.
Yeah, I'm definitely love to host you guys, and maybe we'll do a guest appearance or a guest show in my office one of these days. That'd be kind of cool. Once it's all done, you've been a huge help in helping us out with that and recommending, you know, people, and obviously through your various years of, I think you help a lot of people get office buildings.
Correct.
In this case, I'm a tenant of an office building, but a lot of your clients buy freestanding, freestanding.
Right. Multi-tenant buildings or freestanding buildings, or I do a lot of representation of tenants going to like these bigger buildings owned by these big landlords.
Yeah.
You know,
and
I recall when you were trying to deal with them for
that was fun.
You know, expanding the state and signing the new lease, how the landlord was treating you guys and who had to get involved from New York. That was quite an experience.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and when you do something very well in life and you do very well in your business, I think you expect the same standards of other people, and you start to realize this in this world that really what can you really count on, and really you're gonna be really let down if you hold those expectations, and you realize that a lot of people aren't gonna do what you do for them, and other companies aren't gonna give you the same courtesy that you give to your clients. And I think that was one of the hardest things, realizing that the majority of the people don't have your best interest, unfortunately, and that's just the reality of life and the reality of business. But you could be extremely gifted and well what you do in your business. Like I can respectfully say, without any arrogance about myself, is that I know my business. I know the manufacturing of it. I know from A to Z. I know the buying of the diamond to the selling of it. I know the customer service, and I know how to take care of things from A to Z. And I think that's a really unique niche of our business, is that most people either do front of the business directly to retail, or they do just the manufacturing or the diamond buying. We literally do A to Z. And I think it's really hard when you do something really well and you're good at it, and then you start venturing into now remodeling, expansion, and you're doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, and you realize just how many people are really out there to get you, bind you, get you stuck into, a lot of legal documentation, which you can find yourself in trouble with. And I know a lot of people who have faced that, and I think probably, what do I always tell them? Hey, you need to talk to Cam. You got to talk to my boy. I mean, you need someone who's a specialist in that industry that you trust. And I think that, I tell those people with jewelry, you're not just buying the jewelry, you're buying the jeweler. And I think in your industry, you're definitely not just buying the home, you're not just buying the business, you're not just buying the location, you're not just buying the loan. You're buying the person that guides you through that process. I mean, I always say you're never going to know enough about someone else's industry. You're not.
Right.
So as much as you want to research and Google and find, you're going to find a lot of propaganda, a lot of bias information out there that people are putting out there because that's what benefits their business. But until you find someone that works on the basis that I fundamentally grew up on, was take care of people and they will take care of you, and work off of that old school mentality of the referral system. It's like, hey, Cam took care of 10 of my friends. He's going to take care of me, so I refer 10 more friends. And I think that's the way that I've always kind of worked with you and so forth. And I think that's a huge thing that this generation's learning to fall back on now. I think the old generation was always like, hey, do things the old way. Mom, dad's like, hey, I have a friend. Young generation comes in and goes, no, I don't trust my dad and mom. They're old school. They're probably talking about some old man who doesn't know things. They'll go on Google or Instagram, and just because someone has a good reviews, good Google review or something like that, they trust them. And all of a sudden, in the good times, it looks like their business is great. And then a little bit of uncertainty, belly up right away. And that's why I think it's really important to find someone that you trust, someone that has an established company, an established business, someone who has a brick and mortar place.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a huge part of what you've done. But I think that essentially business as a whole in every industry is actually very similar.
Right.
It comes down to trust and longevity.
Right.
So
trust is the number one factor.
For sure. No question about it. And I think that understanding that every situation is subjective. I think that's one thing that's very helpful to understand, is that everybody's jewelry preference, purchase, budget is different. Like every single one of your customers is in a different financial bracket.
Correct.
And I think that you will handle every customer accordingly to what they're looking for, but also to their finances. And I think that when you don't work with somebody you know or trust, you're going to get the same treatment across the board. Or you go look online at this company and you just expect, oh, because this person got this is what I need, or this person got this is what I should get. Right. But it's not. You need a professional to look at your financial statements and look at your office space and look at, whatever you may require and say, okay, this makes sense. Some people can work off of higher interest rates because they really need the capital. Correct. You know what I mean? There's people in that industry for that. And there's certain people like myself that can't work off of that. Right. We need those lower rates so that we can take care of our customers and so forth.
You're looking to be in the industry for a long time,
sure,
as it through multiple generations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
yeah.
The key factor for you guys.
And that we're going on 47 years coming up on.
That's amazing.
So it's crazy. I always tell people, I'm like, hey, we're a half a century year old company. And when they hear it like that, they're like, half a century. I mean,
I see you're not even that old.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's definitely something I take pride in, but it's something that I want to continue for generations. I want, our name, the Baida name, to continue through generations and surpass that. And I hope that, my kids are one day dealing with your kids as well.
I look forward to that.
And then continuing this spider web effect that we do of just getting more and more people involved in our circle. And,
right.
I'm sure you have other friends that are going to, join the show. Maybe Mike is going to join, Mike Martinek, who's our, insurance guy and is an amazing guy. I mean, that's actually how we met.
Correct.
And I'll literally talk with Mike and I'll just be like, hey, what does this mean? What does this mean? Insurance. And Mike will just handle everything. And I think that's the relationship that all of us have created for each other, is that if I have an insurance question, Eddie, don't worry about it. You focus on diamonds and jewelry because that's what you're good at. And that's where you make your money. And that's where you know what to do and specialize in. And your time is most valuable there. I'll take care of the insurance. Like you say, Eddie, folks in the business, I'll take care of the small print, the fine print, and so forth. So I think that, again, that just goes right back to trust. And I trusted Mike Martinek. You trusted him.
Correct.
He brought you to me. And I think the first day even, you came with a product and we looked at it and we're like, no. Right. And I think Mike even looked at me and was like, dude, Cam's a big shot at what he does. His wife's a big shot. Like, they need to you take care of them. They're a good customer. And I'm like, dude, we're not going to do something that we don't believe in. Like,
it wasn't your own product.
Yeah, it wasn't my product. And we structurally didn't want to work on it because I didn't want anything to happen. And later on you say, what do you mean, Mike, why'd you send me this guy? And I think our first thing was like a mutual respect, because you're like looking at me like, okay, well, Dad, Eddie, Mike could easily just take this, charge me the labor and make that. And I looked and I was like, I could easily do that, but that's not who we are. I was like, no, we're not going to do it. You want something done right and our product in the right way, we'll do it for you, but we're not going to fix someone's boo-boo.
Right.
And that goes back to just, again, trust and expertise and relationship. So we built that foundation from day one with you. If you would have came in and just taken the opportunity, where would we be at today?
Right. You never know.
Exact
direction it will lead to.
Exactly. So.
Thank you for being on the show, Eddie. I appreciate all the kind words, all the respect, and, leading this to being a family. It's been, a pleasure of mine, and I look forward to being 50, 100 more years of the same status.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. It was an honor, and I'm looking forward to see where this, grows to, and looking forward to coming back on if you have me.
Definitely. I look forward to having you on further shows.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Pleasure, sir.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share any questions or comments in the comments below, and follow us on social media. I look forward to seeing you next time.